The views expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station. Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan. This is a Channel 11 News public affairs program dealing with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Annie Taylor, and today I'm sitting here with Nieman, the Director of Development for the Alpena Regional Medical Center. So, Ann, I would like to start off by talking about a little bit of your role and how you, work in the medical center.
Okay. My role is a development director at Alpena Regional Medical Center. A lot of people don't know sometimes what development really means, but we've got what we call a development council, which is really the fundraising arm of the hospital, Annie. A lot of hospitals have separate foundations. Ours is all rolled right into the hospital per se, so we are the fundraising arm of the hospital, really.
And why is your department important to the medical center?
Well, if the hospital at Alpena Regional Medical Center, we're a community-owned hospital. We're owned by the county, and we're a nonprofit hospital. So all of our proceeds and any money we make go right back into hospital operations. As you can well imagine, hospital equipment is extremely important. When we talk about replacing a CT scanner or an MRI or the linear accelerator for radiation treatment, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. So that is really, when you talk about a bottom line and trying to make a profit at a hospital, if you make $2 or $3 million a year, still not enough to cover larger pieces of equipment like that, let alone doing some fix-ups and kind of what we call enhancing the patient experience and vital patient enhancements at the hospital. So the Development Council or the foundation kind of steps in and does a lot of the projects that sometimes can't be funded through the general operating budget.
So most of the products that you get funded for are either fix-ups, like you said, or technology kind of things?
Absolutely, absolutely. All the funds that we raise go directly to a project that we have identified or a group of projects that we've identified. We've completed 2 groups of 5 projects that have been very exciting, and they've been, like I say, enhancing the patient quality, more comfort for patients and families, or technology.
And how did you start and getting involved with the hospital?
Well, I had a wonderful opportunity. I came on board about 11 years ago. Had a wonderful opportunity in the public relations department, and then through attrition and people retiring, I kind of moved into the philanthropy role and the development role, and it's something that I've really, really enjoyed.
And moving on to the donor part of the aspect, how do you get donors and the money that comes from them? How do you approach those?
We have really various ways that people support the hospital. A lot of people support the hospital through a memorial if they have someone that recently passed away and they have memorials designated to the hospital. A lot of people support the hospital because they've either worked there or had a good experience there. We also actively seek donors for the hospital. We are a community hospital. We're owned by the community, and we look to the community for their support. So we actively look for donors at different levels. We have things, 2 annual solicitations. One is called the Memorial Garden Mailing, and the other one is the year-end appeal. So we send that to our database twice a year, once in May and once in November. But also we have the Development Council, which is really 50 active community volunteers that assist with the hospital, and they're out there giving people the opportunity also to support the hospital at different levels.
Besides those 50 volunteers, how many people are helping you in your department?
Well, the 50 volunteers are the ones that are really helping me in my department. They're the ones that are really, most of them all have full-time jobs anyway, and they have families, and they give of their time and effort to support the hospital, which is just awesome. So they really help me out a lot, and then I have an administrative assistant that also helps.
And what do the volunteers do? Do they make phone calls? Do they go out and speak for the hospital?
They do it all. They make phone calls. They They identify prospects, they invite people to support the hospital, they put on events, they host events, they make phone calls, they do mailings, they do a variety of tasks. They put on programs, educational programs of both charitable giving education and also health-related education programs. They also speak to community groups, service clubs, and things like that.
Do they stay within Alpena, or do they have an outreach outside of the community?
Well, mainly right now we are kind of focused in Alpena, but we are looking for opportunities to get in the outlying areas. Alpena Regional Medical Center is the largest hospital with a 100-mile radius, so our service area is quite large. So we really feel a need to get out into some of the other areas. I believe the end of this month we're going up to Rogers City and doing a presentation to the Kiwanis Club up there. So we always look for other opportunities to get involved with other areas.
That sounds great. The target that you reach for each year, I'm guessing it's a little bit different for the money that you wish to make for the hospital. How do you guys decide how much you are looking for? Or
well, it's kind of a really interesting process. I work closely with the administrative team and the CEO at the hospital. We take a look at the capital budget and what is a priority on that capital budget and what the Development Council might be able to assist with, whether it be one large project or a few smaller projects. And so then that goes back to the Development Council volunteers and our leadership team of the Development Council. And we kind of give them those projects to look at and make a decision from there, kind of add up the total and kind of target the community about what kind of impact those projects would have, and then kind of take a look at the dollar amount and spread that over either a year, 18 months, 2 years.
have you seen a decline in revenue that you guys have made over the years, or has it been really successful and you guys have earned more throughout the years?
That's an interesting question, because everybody thinks that due to the economy a lot of donations drop, but I really feel that Alpena is an extremely generous community, and our results really depend on the projects that we have to offer and how they impact those individuals. So if we have a really good viable project or two, the community is extremely generous, and our revenues have been holding right in there.
Oh, that's great. Backtracking a little bit about the foundation, what is the history behind it before you came in 11 years ago?
The history of the foundation, it was created as an organized department of the hospital in about 1995, 1996. That's when we developed the Development Council structure, which is 5 different committees, and that's how we got going in the organized fundraising fashion. There had been fundraising that happened in the hospital long before that, but as far as an organized department, 1995, 1996 is when it really began.
All right, and will you describe the 5 departments that you work around?
Sure. There are 5 different committees. We have our annual support committee that's led by Amber Hess. She's the one that chairs that committee. The annual support committee has a couple different functions. They do the memorial garden and the year-end appeal. They also do a Wyland pheasant hunt in September. They host that, which is a fundraising event for us. But it's a group of community volunteers. There's 7 people on that committee that look for our annual donations at our Anchor Society level, which is a contribution of $100 a year on an annual basis.
All right, that sounds, yeah.
Then there's the Business Relations Committee that's chaired by Barb Wilmot. That committee has 7 people, and that is, they deal mainly with the community businesses, trying to get business sponsorships for their event is the Al Ferris Race that we do on Labor Day weekend, which is a shameless plug, but it's a half marathon, a 5K, a 2-mile walk, a tot trot, and a bike race. And so we do that on Labor Day weekend, and all the businesses are sponsors of that race, and that's kind of their big event. And to be a member of the Business Honor Roll, any business can be a member, and that's an annual donation of $250 or more.
Oh, okay, great. Before we leave, I just want to let people know after the break that Hal Neiman will be joining us, and he's the owner, of course, of Neiman's Market. So we will talk to him about how the community can get involved and what he does for the Alpena Regional Medical Center. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Insights. I'm Annie Taylor, and I'm sitting here with Ann Diamond, the Director of Development for the Alpena Regional Medical Center, and we are joined by also Hal Nieman, the owner of Neiman's Market. So
Hi.
welcome.
Welcome.
So before we left for break, before we get into Hal, will you discuss the last three departments that that you work around?
Sure. The Development Council has three additional committees. One is the Community Outreach Committee. They do educational programming, do an awesome job. They provide lunch and learn programs. That's chaired by Kathy Garrett in our community. She does an awesome job. We have the Plan Gifts Committee. That's chaired by Bernie Lamb. And that is really a great committee about, they educate the community about wills, bequests, the importance of planned giving, and leaving a legacy to your charity of choice, hopefully Alpena Regional Medical Center. And then our final committee is the Special Prospects Committee. That's our larger giving group. That's chaired by Brian Bartosh and co-chaired by Amy Essex. Their giving club is called the Keystone Society, which is a $10,000 commitment to the hospital, $1,000 over 10 years. We currently have, I believe, about 189 people in the Keystone Society. So those are our larger givers that have been very generous to the hospital. And that's how Mr. Nieman got involved here. He was chair of the Special Prospects Committee.
Oh, were you now?
Well, yeah, actually, they have to be honest. They asked me to chair the committee, and then they told me after that I said yes that there wasn't actually a committee yet, that we were actually in the process of reforming it because it had kind of fallen off. So I got trial by fire, but it was exciting and something I wanted to do, and it was a great opportunity.
So now, what is your role within the donation process?
Well, actually, I work at Ann number one as a volunteer, chairman of the entire program, but we kind of oversee the 5 committees. So we work together to make sure the committees are functioning effectively. They have new members. They've got a sense of direction of where they're trying to go. And I also sit in on the Special Prospects Committee so that I get an opportunity to do the same thing that they do, which is make the ask and offer the opportunity for people to participate and support the hospital.
How long have you been involved with this?
Well, around 6 or 8 years. I kind of think of it in terms of when was the most recent time that I needed the hospital, or there was somebody in my family that needed it. We've been with 140 employees locally. We see a lot of times that the hospital becomes an important part of their lives, and so that recognition and the very fact that I got asked to participate really kind of got the ball rolling. But my family, my in-laws live here in town. They're now in their 90s, and they've needed the hospital for a number of times. My wife has needed the hospital. In fact, ironically, just this past Thursday night, she had cut the end of her finger off in her sewing room, and so it wasn't something we could fix at the house.
Yeah.
So, you know,
you could sew it back together.
I was willing to try, but she wasn't too excited about my plan. So we ended up going to the hospital, and again, terrific service, checking the emergency room out. What they had to do was something we couldn't have done at the home, or we would have had to drive somewhere else. So it just proves it time and again, and I've seen it a number of times at our store where folks have needed it. So that involvement really kind of involved around the recognition of the importance of the hospital.
That's what I was going to ask you. Why did you feel compelled to helping out?
You know, when you think about the hospital, you think about what is important to the community, just on a purely financial level. It's probably selfish of me to want to be part of the hospital, because the truth is they have almost 1,000 employees. They are a vital piece of the economic base of our community, and so any business, anybody living here, indirectly and directly many times, is affected by their presence. I can't imagine what Alpena would be like without it. It would be hard to imagine. And just for example, when I had prostate cancer several years back, but the new cancer center there, I could leave the hospital at 3 o'clock, and by 3:20 I could be back to work. 46 radiation treatments, and didn't have to miss a day of work, where had it not been there, it would have been a trip over to Petoskey or south to Saginaw. It had been an all-day event. It would have made it very much more difficult to operate my company. So again, we're extremely blessed to have it, and when I go talk to folks, it's really not about asking for money. It's saying, here's an opportunity for you to help yourself, help your friends and neighbors and your family. It's a big deal.
And will you explain a little bit about you're on the community side of it. Like you said,
Exactly.
you're speaking for the hospital.
Yep.
Will you explain a little bit about that role?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point to be made, because we also have an opportunity to bring back to the hospital information that maybe they wouldn't always hear directly. You know, things don't always turn out perfectly when you go to the hospital. Sometimes things don't, and sometimes the hospital doesn't handle it just right. But they can get better if they don't know what's going on. So when we hear complaints or concerns, we make sure that they are aware we're going to share that information to the hospital. We handle it back to Ann, and she's quick to get it to the right folks. And it's just been really great to see that kind of information flow back and forth. We do the same thing with the committee and encourage them to bring information back. So you got 50 or 60 voices out there. So the hospital has a great opportunity to know what's happening and what people are thinking of their delivery of services. And I think over the last 5-10 years, we've seen a tremendous growth in both the impression of the hospital in the community, as well as what the hospital is delivering.
And that you feel that way because you get, you know, people vocalize.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, we see 15 to 20,000 customers a week, so we have lots of opportunity to hear from people, and they're not terribly afraid to say something to me. They'll tell me what they think, almost any subject. So I love that, and that's one of the exciting things about being in the grocery business. So it makes it possible for us to hear from them and to hear their frustrations, and sometimes they are real, and sometimes they are just misunderstandings.
And how do you go about knowing, you know, what groups to go after or in the community, or is that something, Ann, that you relay to him, like tell him where to go or speak to?
Well, I think it's kind of a whole group effort with the Development Council. We are, you know, I'm really proud of everybody that volunteers for the Development Council, and we are quite selective in who we choose to invite to serve on the councils, people that have a passion for the hospital, and of course that's why Hal is involved. He's just an awesome volunteer. And everybody has a different pocket of people that they know, and we kind of look at the donors that possibly have a special interest in maybe one area that we're working on and things like that.
Yeah, that's
you know, Annie, if you had a room of 100 people and asked them to raise their hand if they like asking for money, you don't get too many hands to go up.
Right.
And one of the things we've tried to point out to people and help them to realize, it's not really just about making an ask. It's really sharing information about the hospital, and then once they understand how the hospital impacts them and the effect it has on them and their friends, it's really giving them an opportunity to make that contribution. And you know, it's not the desire to take their money or make them feel like they have to do it. We want them to feel good about their donations.
Well, and we also want their ideas and their input too. And as Hal said before, the Development Council is, yes, a fundraising arm, but we really are a community group that wants to hear what the community wants and needs and how we can make things better too. So that's kind of what we're all about.
I think it's nice too how you take in consideration even the people who aren't donating to the hospital,
Absolutely.
but you know, just still want their voice to be heard.
Absolutely.
So going back to the community part,
Sure.
How does it really affect the community with your job?
Sure. Well, first of all, we begin to talk a little bit about that, but I would like to expand on it if I might. First of all, if you don't have a vital hospital in the area, you're going to suffer because you're not going to have access to it for yourself or your employees, and you're not going to have the economic base that they provide. You know, the hospital needs highly skilled technical people, and you have to pay those people accordingly. So it brings in a nice rich base of reality. And at the same time, we just have the opportunity. We are an isolated area in many ways, so for people to be serviced in their medical needs, they've got to go outside, or if they can't come here. Any thoughts on that, Ann?
No, I think that's one of the important things about the hospital. We are the largest employer. We have an operating budget of $160 million and a payroll of about $55 million that we put back into the community too. So Alpena would be a lot different place if it wasn't for the hospital.
I completely agree. Now, I feel like we're just getting started with all this, but when we come back, we're going to discuss the future of the hospital, so stay with us. Welcome back to Insights. I'm still sitting here with Hal Neiman, the owner of Neiman's Market, and Ann Diamond, the Director of Development for the Alpena Regional Medical Center. Before we left, we were talking about future plans moving into that of the hospital. But first, the success that you've had and some of your accomplishments, I was just wondering, Ann and Hal, maybe you guys aren't on the same page with the same accomplishment, but what is your favorite one that you've worked on?
I'm going to defer to Hal to let him talk.
Yeah. Well, a couple of years after we got into this, we began to talk about how we could enhance the patient experience on some things that typically the hospital really realistically couldn't use their critical funds for. And so at one point we had 5 projects going on. And Ann and I, in fact, visited a number of hospitals that had what we called comfort care rooms, end-of-life rooms. And we saw a lot of things we liked and a lot of things we didn't like. And the biggest thing is that Ann got the folks who were working with the patients who were terminal in the hospital already to find out what we needed to have in that setting. And we created a comfort care office, and I'll let her tell a little bit about that. But it's one of the most exciting things I think we've accomplished, and we've heard some neat things. So, Ann?
Yes, it's called the Comfort Care Suite at the hospital, and what we essentially did was we took 2 patient rooms and made a suite for the family to be with their loved one in their last days and hours. So typically a person is in the Comfort Care Suite anywhere from 5 hours to 5, 6, or 7 days. And it's actually 2 rooms with all the amenities of hopefully a home for people that don't want to be at home. We've got specialized nursing care that are hospice trained, and we have hospice volunteers that are there also. In the family room, we have a love seat that folds out so people can be there 24/7. Through Hal's experience and his expertise in the food business, we have a instant coffee machine, tea machine that can brew at any time of the day or night. We've got a sink, we've got a microwave, we have a refrigerator, we've got a game table for families. And so that room has been really an excellent accomplishment, and I would have to agree with Hal, and that's why I kind of deferred to him. It really has been one of the stars in the money that I've helped raise for the hospital. It's so rewarding to go down there and see families that are together and can be together with their loved one in the last days.
The feedback's been just tremendous. You know, we have people come in who have had that experience, and they continue to talk about. I mean, my mom and dad both died, one at home and one in the hospital. And the hospital care was great, but the room for my dad was deplorable. And so once you see what
and that was downstate, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't here.
It wasn't here.
but you realize what the possibilities are, and that doesn't diminish the other projects we had, which have all been exciting in their own heart. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we brought on. We have a vehicle that goes out south of here and picks up cancer patients and allows them to come in and be taken care of when they can't themselves drive. It's just so many of those things. So that's been pretty exciting for me.
We've revamped the ICU waiting room also. We've done the other waiting rooms, so they all have a pretty consistent look. But the Comfort Care Suite has been really special. You really see the impact you have on families. I know I walked in there. I was invited by one of the nurses to meet the family about a year ago or so, and I didn't know the family at all. And as soon as I walked in the door, they started hugging me and thanking me. And I said, "It's not me at all. It's the community that provided this for you." But it's very, very rewarding to see that.
I was just going to say it's rewarding to actually see it take place.
Yep.
Moving on to the future plans, making sure the hospital is a success. So how will you speak a little bit about future plans?
I can't help but think about that as we see what takes place in some communities. It's a rather sad story, obviously, in Sheboygan, where not only the hospital itself, but 400 employees were no longer part of the community in a vital way. And it's not just about that they have always control over everything, but if we aren't supporting the hospital, we aren't making sure, and if we don't have good leadership and quality individuals, really bad things can happen. The hospital actually has to write off $300,000-400,000 each month from what they expected to get versus what they really get, and those are hard dollars to replace. So anything we do, anything the hospital volunteer group like this does, those dollars are all going right to the project, so they don't have overhead in that sense. So it's an exciting way to do it, and I would hope that we do have some future plans. I think Ann could even speak to some of that excitement about that.
I think that's one of the great things about having Hal involved. He takes a profit organization mentality and brings it into the hospital and challenges us all the time to think out of the box, and just because you've always done it that way isn't the way you need to do it, and how we can be in the community in a little different realm as opposed to just a hospital. And he really has offered a lot of great ideas and thoughts, and even as we look at projects to do, how they would impact his family, his employees, and that is the benefit of the Development Council as we talk to all the people that serve on the council about, what's their perspective. But we've got some exciting things on the docket. We're looking at kicking off a large project, hopefully in the fall. We've got some direction of that from our administrative team. They've wrestled with a couple different projects, one of them being private patient rooms, which would be awesome. It would be a lot more privacy for patients, and it would be just a nice, most new hospitals that are being built all have private rooms. So we do have a few private rooms, but that would be one direction we might go. The other direction we might go is a revamp and a remodel of the emergency department, which is really the face of the hospital. That's where a lot of our patients come in. That's the first blush of the hospital. And we certainly could use a little more privacy in the emergency department. Both of those projects are significant projects, though. One of them, I believe, is a $5 million project, and one is a $12 million plus project. So we've got a work cut out for us if that's the way we decide to go, and we will probably have a confirmation of that in the next couple months or so. But it's also very exciting to think that we can move forward and offer something like that to the community with their help.
And that's the challenges that we have as we think about those two projects. How do we make sure that people understand the value of them? Most of us that have been in the hospital know how tough it is sometimes when you got two people in the room and lots of family members, and one may be sicker than the other, and it's just really difficult. So there's a lot of value in trying to create that private room where you feel like you have some sense of connection to your family. On the other hand, the emergency ward is tough. I mean, when we were there the other night, we're talking sheets between the beds, and you really need to have more sense of ownership and privacy when the trauma of having to be at the hospital. So the hospital has had a hard time to sorting that out, but they've got a really great systematic way, organizational way of approaching those two projects and saying which one do we really have to do and how can we get the community to support it. And so I think we're going to move forward on them.
I do too, and I think the hospital is doing their due diligence with the changes in health care and reimbursements. No one knows what tomorrow is going to bring, and it's kind of scary water, but like Hal said, the team they've consulted with the Development Council, they've consulted with physicians, the administrative team, the board. Everybody's had input on both projects, and they're just kind of being weighed one or the other, and one day it's one and one day it's the other. So I think by the fall it's pretty exciting, and we'll probably have one to offer.
Yeah.
It seems as though you guys have a positive relationship working with the community and both the hospital. Are there any events coming up for people to know about?
Well, we do have a couple events coming up in the fall. We have the Alpena Run Walk. It's a half marathon and a 5K, two-mile walk for families. There's a tot trot for kids. There's an 18.5-mile bike walk. That's on Saturday, September 1st. That's a Saturday of Labor Day weekend. That's a great family event, and we always have a good time there. This will be the 11th annual. We also have the Wyland Pheasant Hunt, which is a tower shoot. It's a European tower shoot that's held out in Spruce. That's the 13th year for that, I believe, which is a great event, raising money for the hospital. And then we have a new event coming up called the Framed, a Previously Viewed Art Auction, which will be on September 15th also.
And I don't want to cut Ann off, but two quick things I want to mention is, one, it's really great to work with people who are passionate about their work and are hardworking, and that's one of the reasons why I contribute as much time as I do, because I see that both in her and Kathy, her assistant, and the people that we have to work with. And if they want to volunteer or want to offer some help or assistance, call Ann at the hospital, call me at the store, stop by either place, and we'd be more than happy to jump in and help out.
I think that's great. I just want to say thank you so much for both of you sitting down with me today. I know that the community will really appreciate this when they see it and learn so much more. I know that I have, so thank you so much. And we hope you enjoyed Insights today. We'll see you back next week.
Insights into Northeast Michigan has been a Channel 11 News public affairs program. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email us at the web address on the screen. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.